Okay, can we start to test the mics? They said, what's the button? The green light. I did that. Yes, everything. Let's go. We're late. I will. That needs to be full face. Yep, yep. Testing. Can anybody hear this mic? Not yet. Yeah, but okay. I'm sorry. We're gonna get going in just a minute. We're just the mic is lined up. Ready? Can you hear me in this mic? Can everybody hear me? No. Sarah Lynn. Sarah Lynn? Oh, okay. Okay, how's this? Can everybody hear me now? A little bit louder, please, Sarah Lynn. Yes, you can shut that. Okay, how about now? Is this better? Yeah. All right, great. Welcome to the 2021 Town Deliberative Session. I'm Deb Fauver. I'm the town moderator. The first thing to do is look around for emergency exits and find one, like they say on the planes. The nearest one may be behind you. Behind me are some screens, and they don't seem to be on, so perhaps we don't have anybody in the auditorium yet. Do we know, Sarah Lynn? Okay, so the plan is that people with masks on are in this room and people without masks are in the other room. We need to pay attention to whether anybody is in that auditorium. I can't see them. Doug Burnell will be looking for them, but if you see somebody on the screen waving, please let me know. Okay. If you plan to speak tonight, you need to come up to this microphone right over here. That's the only way everybody can hear, and we're recording the meeting as well. Non-voters who are present, would you please raise your hands so we see where you are? Okay. So don't vote. The only people who can vote are the ones with the blue cards, and you non-voters don't have blue cards, so it's fine to sit where you want. The Conway Police Department Color Guard will present the colors, and I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. So we're here tonight to talk about warrant articles 6 through 35, beginning on page 8 of the handout. We are not voting on these articles. Tonight you may ask questions, state opinions, offer amendments. We will vote on any amendments, and as we complete our review of each article, it will be placed on the official ballot for the April 13th voting day. That vote will be right here at Kennett High School using the same format we used at the November 2020 presidential election. We thank the Kennett staff for making this space available during these challenging COVID times and for running a successful in-person program when many other schools have not been able to do so. A town report with the results of tonight's meetings will be made available to you before the April 13th voting day. The rules of procedure for tonight are pretty much the same as they've been for the last several years, except for the business about masks. If anybody has any questions at any point, please ask them, but I'm not going to go over them again now because I see a whole lot of familiar faces and I think you know the rules as well as I do. But please don't hesitate to ask questions. I talk fast and I want to move things along, but if anybody has questions or wants to make comments, I genuinely do want to hear those. Before we take up the first article, I'd like to introduce the town officials who've put in hours and hours of work to prepare for this meeting. So when I call your name, please raise your hand. Town Manager Tom Holmes, Executive Secretary Krista Day, Selectman David Weathers, Mary Carey Seavey, Carl Thibodeau, John Colbath, Steve Porter, and Town Attorney Peter Malia. I'm hearing some feedback. Does that mean we have people in the auditorium? He's in the cafeteria. That's the overflow area, which we probably don't need. Okay. All right, Budget Committee. The chair is Jim Lefevre, Vice Chair Peter Donahue, David Jensen, Michael Fougere, Frank Jost, Ellen Leonard, Eric Corbett, Bob Drinkhall, Mike Laracy, Diane Ryan, Eric Dietzick, Bill Otten, and John Edgerton. Also, we have Kathleen Golding, the Town Finance Officer. Good. And school moderator Doug Burnell is here to assist me. So, let's start with Article 6 at the bottom of your page 8. To see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen the powers to regulate short-term rentals under RSA 41:11, capital C, and charge fees to license them under RSA 41:9, small a, recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0. That means 5 in favor, 0 opposed, and 0 abstentions. Is there any discussion of Article 6? Then I'll place Article 6 on the April 13th warrant or ballot as written. Article 7, the operating budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant for the purposes set forth therein, $12,082,831. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $11,880,353, which is the same as last year's, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town of Conway or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and XVI to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Note, this operating budget warrant article does not include appropriation contained in any other warrant article. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 5-0-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 9-3-0. Is there any discussion on the budget? Come right up to this microphone, please. And please state your name.
My name is Julie Laracy. I'm a library trustee.
Nope, she can't hear.
My name is Julie Laracy. I'm a library trustee. Good.
Good.
I'd like to make a motion to change the benefits line of the library budget.
Can you tell us what page you're on?
I am on page 26 in your packet.
Page 26. The benefits line that's in the bottom block, library benefits.
Yes.
Go ahead, and the motion is?
So the budgeted amount is $120,979. We'd like to change that number by $9,249, adding that amount into the budget. We're in the process of a staffing change, and we want to make this change as a contingency for hiring the most qualified candidate. And this would allow us to cover their benefits, potentially.
So some people are having a hard time hearing. Is it? Well,
Yeah.
we don't have anybody in the auditorium, so I think she could face
Can I,
that way.
like that? Does that work?
No, yell louder.
Is this thing on?
Yeah. Can we turn up the mic? No, it's on. It's on. You need to get a little closer to it, apparently.
Just yell.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. So, I'm Julie Laracy, and I am one of the members of the Board of Trustees of the library. And I'd like to propose a change on page 26 to the library benefits line. I'm proposing an increase of $9,249 because we're in the midst of the hiring process to replace one of our employees that left. And this will allow us to hire the most qualified candidate. In the event that this money is not needed, it will return 100% to the town.
Before you continue, can I ask if there's a second to this motion? You got Stacy Sand seconded. Okay. Go ahead, Julie. Anything further?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody have questions, comments, concerns? And you've got the number. Okay, so the motion is to increase the bottom line of the budget by $9,249 for a total budget of $12,091,831. And the motion's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, so we're going to vote, and I don't think we've seen anybody in the auditorium, so the way we'll vote, I'll ask all those in favor to raise their blue cards. And then, so anybody in favor of this amendment of adding the $9,249, raise your blue cards. And Doug, can you count half the room? Because maybe we need to. No? Okay. Okay, put them down. All those opposed to this motion? Okay, we need a majority vote, so the amendment has passed. Is there any further discussion on the budget? Stacy Sand?
I would like to add $16,000 to the budget.
On which page?
It would be the recreation maintenance budget.
That's also page 26.
To pay for somebody to clean the bathrooms that we already have public access to, because
Okay, hold on. Is there a second to this motion before we discuss it? Chris Meyer seconded the motion. Go ahead, Stacy.
so when I was a selectman, the North Conway Community Center exchanged a piece of land with the town of Conway and guaranteed that we have public access to the bathrooms that were added to the community center. The problem is we never budgeted any money to maintain them or to service them. So that's what I'm proposing, is that we hire somebody to go in 3 times a day, either our cleaning company or somebody, to clean those bathrooms and have them open to the public during daylight hours.
Okay, any further discussion with respect to this motion?
Madam Moderator?
Yes.
Stacy, are you referring to the bathrooms on the back of the ski museum?
Yes.
Okay, we looked through the public records and found no guarantees or no agreements in regards to them having to have the bathrooms or to keep them open. We called the Woodbury Foundation, the Gibson Woodbury Foundation, to see if they would allow us to open them if we cleaned them, and they said only if you clean them after every use. So they're not willing to open those doors.
Well, we traded a piece of land for conditions in the development of that building. So
If you can find that paperwork, we've looked everywhere.
Well, did you look in the minutes?
Yes, and the only thing I found was something with Mike DiGregorio stating that that was the plan, but it never followed through with the planning board. In fact, I had a discussion with Mr. Irving, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, but he said it's not something the planning board could demand anyway. We want to, I agree with you, it was the first people we called, but if the owner's not willing, he's just not willing.
Well, I think we could fight that in terms of we gave them a piece of land for those bathrooms.
Any further comment on the motion to add $16,000 for the cleaning of bathrooms in the Schuler Park vicinity? That would bring the budget up to $12,107,831. All those in favor of this amendment, raise your blue cards. All those opposed? So the amendment does not pass. So we are back to the budget of $12,091,831. Is there any further discussion on the budget? Oh, go ahead. Or come up to the microphone and go ahead, sorry. I think the trick is you need to face the crowd and
Yeah.
speak right into it.
Can you all hear me? Okay. Nothing like having a valet. Thanks. I was at the Budget Committee's public hearing, and at that hearing, the chairman of the Budget Committee, when the subject of the operating budget came up, said that he would have preferred to go with the default budget. I realize we don't have a specific default budget yet, but no one discussed it, so I don't know why, and I'd just kind of like to hear what his reasoning was.
Mr. Marvel, why don't you take a seat right there in case you want to follow up?
Hello, I'm Jim LePaver, Chairman of the Budget Committee. In answer to Mr. Marvel's question, I am of the opinion that a default budget, which is less than $300,000 less than the operating budget, is something that the town of Conway can obviously deal with. It's less than a 2% decrease in their operating budget. Most budgets have what we call some flex. You have to remember that the town of Conway's budget, much like the school district's budget, is a bottom line budget. And the select board, in their role as the managers of that budget, can arrange to move funds around to cover potential shortfalls. That is why I suggested the default budget as their operating budget. Does that answer your question, Bill?
Yes, I guess it does. I just was wondering if you had specific suggestions or if it was general. And
Since it is a bottom line budget, I'm not going to go into micromanaging how the select board deals with their budget issues.
all right, thanks.
Is there any further discussion on Article 7? John Colbath?
So just a point of clarification. Bill, you indicated that the default budget wasn't indicated, but it's $11,880,553, which is in the article. That would be the default if the budget isn't approved.
take your word for that, John, but somewhere here I read, I can't. Okay, I read something here that the default budget had not yet been established, and okay, thanks.
It's possible that I didn't make that edit since the default budget was established. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, so are we ready for the vote on the budget, which as amended is $12,091,831? All those in favor, raise your blue cards. Okay, put them down. All those opposed to the Article 7? Article 7 passes as amended and is moved to the April 13th ballot. Article 8, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for infrastructure reconstruction to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established, recommended by the Selectmen recommended by the Budget Committee. Any discussion on Article 8? All those in favor of Article 8? Oh, sorry, I'm thinking town meeting, so yeah. I wondered why you were so slow. You knew you were slow to raise those because you knew we can't vote on this one. All right, so no discussion. It's going to be moved to the ballot. Article 9, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $350,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for highway equipment to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Selectmen, recommended by the Budget Committee. Any discussion on Article 9? Article 9 is placed on the April ballot. Article 10, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $225,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for solid waste equipment to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Any discussion on Article 10? Seeing none, we'll place that on the April ballot. Article 11, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for landfill expansion to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Selectmen, 500, recommended by the Budget Committee, 1200. Any discussion on Article 11? Seeing none, we'll place Article 11 on the April ballot. Article 12, special, not included in the budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $275,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for maintenance of town buildings and facilities to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Selectmen, 500, recommended by the Budget Committee, 1200. Any discussion on Article 12? Seeing none, we'll place that on the April ballot. Article 13, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for maintenance of buildings and facilities leased by the town to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, recommended by the Budget Committee, 1200. Any discussion on Article 13? Article 13 is placed on the April ballot. Article 14, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for Parks Department vehicles and equipment to be used according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen, 500, recommended by the Budget Committee, 1200. Any discussion on Article 14? After? Okay. All right, we'll place Article 14 on the ballot. There's a point of order now. Uh-oh. Okay, we're going to go back to Article 7 for just a minute. The amendment was to add $9,249 to the bottom line of the budget. And that motion passed, which makes Article 7 $12,092,080, which is slightly different than the number I read earlier. We don't need to vote on that unless somebody wants to make a further amendment on the budget. Okay, so if you're writing down the budget, again, the budget that we amended and that will show up on the ballot is $12,092,080. Back to Article 15, special, not included in budget appropriation Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $70,000 to be placed in the Capital Reserve Fund for police vehicles to be used in according to the purposes for which the fund was established. Recommended by the Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. Any discussion on Article 15? Article 15 is placed on the April ballot. Well, so here's the interesting question. We're required by the state of New Hampshire to provide a place for unmasked voters who are unable or unwilling to wear masks. And we've provided that place in the auditorium. Nobody has arrived to take advantage of that. And the question is, should we close the auditorium and let that staff come in here? I'd say, yeah. And if somebody comes along with and wants us to reopen it, we could. Does that, where's Sarah Lynn? Does that work for her? Would that work for you if we? Okay. So the risk is potentially we find an unmasked voter coming to the door, in which case we'll reopen the auditorium or encourage that person to wear a mask. Article 16, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $110,000 to be added to the Public Educational Government Cable Television Trust Fund, previously established to support the operations and equipment needs of public education and government broadcasting services, with said sum to come from cable franchise fees, no amount to come from general taxation. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. Any discussion on Article 16? Article 16 is placed on the April ballot. Article 17, individual, not included in budget appropriation Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $18,000 for the purchase of 10 AEDs, automatic electronic defibrillators, for the Conway Police Department for use at the Police District Court and on patrol. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 000, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. And I believe we have an
Madam
amendment.
Moderator, we need to amend Article 17 just in verbiage only. The last sentence should say, for use at the police, with the word station inserted, district court, and on patrol.
Is there a second to the motion? Okay. And is that true that the selectmen's recommendation is 000? No. 500. Oh, okay. I have the earlier version here. So Article 17, the motion is to amend the final clause to say for use at the police station, district court, and on patrol. It's recommended by the board 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. Any discussion on that amendment? All those in favor of amending, raise your blue cards. Thank you. All those opposed? So the amendment passes. Any further discussion on Article 17? We'll put that on the April ballot. Article 18, individual, not included in budget appropriation Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $8,500 for the purchase of a portable radar trailer for the Conway Police Department for the purpose of speed limit enforcement in Conway. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1110. Any discussion on Article 18? Stacy Sand?
I would like to ask the police department how long the last one lasted. It seemed like every time we asked about it as selectmen that it was in repairs or in the garage, or you didn't have the right trailer hitch to move it from place to place. So what's the guarantee that this time we're going to have one that is going to be out there working for the public?
Hi, Stacy. I don't have all the answers for that because when I got here to the department in 2005, I think that trailer was maybe retired in 2007. So I don't know the specifics of how it was acquired. I do know that it was down a lot. That's why we got rid of it. They work off of solar panels, and I know the issues that we had back then were essentially that the batteries didn't hold the charge. So if we had days where we didn't have sun, which happens quite often up here, the trailer wouldn't go out because once it was plugged in, it wouldn't last very long. This new trailer is much smaller in size. Of course, is 20 years newer. The solar panels that are on the trailer will keep it charged for up to 3 days, and then it would have to be brought back to charge for 3 to 5 hours. So our hope is to be able to deploy this trailer.
Does it have a guaranteed lifespan, like a guaranteed warranty?
Batteries in the solar, yes.
Thank you.
And I can check on that and get back to you if you'd like as far as he goes.
Any further questions or discussion on Article 18? And we'll move that as written to the April ballot. Article 19, special, not included in budget appropriation Article number 7, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the support of Eastern Slope Regional Airport, recommended by the Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1110. Any discussion on the airport? Seeing none, we'll place that on the April 13th ballot. Article 20, non-monetary, to see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to appoint 2 volunteer representatives from the town to serve on the Carroll County Broadband Communications District Planning Committee for the purpose of drafting a communications district agreement under New Hampshire RSA Chapter 53G:2, Communications District Planning Committee, Formation and Responsibilities. Recommended by the Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. Any discussion on Article 20? Seeing none, we'll place that on the April ballot. Article 21, non-monetary, to see if the town will establish a short-term rental expendable trust fund per RSA 31:19 small a for the purpose of regulating short-term rentals and further to make the Board of Selectmen agents to expend from this fund. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. Any discussion on Article 21? Jim? Yeah.
This article is listed as a non-monetary article. However, there's funds being expended. There is a fund, and monies are being expended from that fund. Could someone explain that to us all?
Who would?
What was the question?
Oh, okay.
I'll say it again. This article is listed as a non-monetary article.
Yeah.
However, you have a fund and monies are being expended from that fund. How is that a non-monetary article, please?
The establishment of the trust fund does not contain any money. If you look at the next warrant article, it asks for money to put into the trust fund contingent upon the trust fund passing. So you're welcome to amend the money in the following article if you're not interested in having the trust fund funded. As a way by explanation, the design of this trust fund is to have a mechanism in place so that short-term rental owners who are applying for licenses will be funding the efforts of licensing and regulating the short-term rental issue. And so we don't want to put it on the backs of non-short-term rental property taxpayers. The initial funding of it is because on day one, we won't have any licensing revenue, so we need some seed money in order to get off the ground, mailings, postage, enforcement. And once we get that licensing revenue coming in, the idea is that we won't have to go back to taxpayers every year to fund the expenses of short-term rental management.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank the town manager for his clarification. Thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 21, establishment of the short-term rental expendable trust fund? Seeing none, we'll place that on the April ballot. This next article, I know there's an amendment coming, so I'm going to read it the way I believe the amendment is going to be. Article 2, special, not included in budget appropriation, Article number 7, contingent upon Article 21's passage. This is contingent upon the one we just covered. To see if the town will vote to fund the short-term rental expendable trust fund in its initial year in the amount of $50,000 to be used to hire a short-term rental management company for the purposes of addressing modification, compliance monitoring, complaint hotline, and mobile permitting and fee collection, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen as agents to expend said funds as necessary to offset the cost of regulating and licensing short-term rentals in the town of Conway. After the first year, the short-term rental expendable trust fund will be funded in whole or in part from short-term licensing fees and short-term rental fines. And I'll entertain a motion to amend the typo in the first sentence from 23.
I'll make a motion to amend where it reads Article number 23. It should read Article number 21.
Is there a second? Seconded. Okay. It's a simple amendment. All those in favor of making that current change, please raise your... Okay. Thank you. All those opposed? So Article 22 as amended, we're putting $50,000 into the short-term rental expendable trust fund. Is there any discussion about that? Stacy?
First of all, I want to say I'm not opposed to having a trust fund to establish the enforcement if this passes. But I question, since we spent I think it was $20,000 last year to count, we know what short-term rentals would be, how many we had in town. You'd think from those figures we'd have some idea of who's running Airbnbs. So that would give us a place to start. And I question the $50,000, so I propose that we change this amount to something more realistic before we start collecting monies like maybe $20,000.
So your motion is to amend Article 22 from $50,000 down to $20,000.
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay. So Article 22 at $50,000. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, we'll place Article 22 on the April ballot. Article 23, non-monetary. To see if the town will establish a noise ordinance to assist regulatory officials and law enforcement when responding to noise complaints and help ensure that Conway residents are able to enjoy the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of their property. The full text of the ordinance is as follows. Recommended by the Board of Selectmen 500, recommended by the Budget Committee 1200. I'm not going to read the entire ordinance, but it is there for you to ask questions about. Is there any discussion on Article 23?
So my question is...
And you're Amy Snow,
I'm Amy
right?
Snow, yep. Is it by law that this whole ordinance has to be listed on the warrant?
No, it does not. And I believe at a selectmen's meeting after this meeting, we're going to be discussing whether it should be on the warrant or not. The selectmen voted to put it into the packet so that people would know what they're voting on. However, the moderator and the voter registration people and stuff seem to have a problem with how the voting machines might take a very large warrant with that kind of text in it and could gum things up. So that'll be a discussion after the meeting what the selectmen want to do with this warrant.
So if you're going to discuss it at a meeting, would it be appropriate to make an amendment to this?
Why don't you offer the amendment
Okay,
and we'll...
I would like to make an amendment to the last sentence saying that the full text of the ordinance is available at the town offices and on the town website.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Selectman Thibodeau. And who?
Yes, and then delete the entire ordinance off of the warrant.
Okay, so the proposed amendment is that the last sentence of Article 23 would read, "The full text of the ordinance is available at the town offices and on the town's website." And then delete the actual ordinance from the ballot. And there was a second. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Steiner? Oh, it's a second. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to be nitpicky, but would you put your mask on your nose? Any further discussion on Article 23? All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The amendment passes. Is there any other discussion with respect to the noise ordinance? Oh, Chris Meyer.
Hi, Chris Meyer. I'm going to offer an amendment which I think should be housekeeping, but the definition... Sorry. I'm Chris Meyer, and I'm going to offer an amendment which I think should be housekeeping depending on how this was intended to be drafted. But if you look at 97.4, the definitions section, it defines loud, unusual, or other unnecessary noise.
That's the top of page 12.
There's two other places that talk about, I think, what's intended to be loud, unusual, or unnecessary noise. In 97.1, it says loud, unnecessary, or unusual noises. I would offer an amendment to change 97.1 to what's defined as loud, unusual, or unnecessary noise.
So wait, so you're proposing an amendment at 97.1. That's like the very first line of this noise ordinance.
Correct?
And where would you put in words or change words?
I would change loud, unnecessary, or unusual noises to loud, unusual, or other unnecessary noise. And add after that, or noise, which will annoy or disturb.
Okay, so we're at 97.1, purpose and intent, because the creation and or maintenance of loud, unusual, or other unnecessary noises which will annoy or disturb.
Or which will annoy or disturb. And that's because that's what in 97.6A says is unlawful. So I'm trying to make the purpose and intent consistent with what is actually being outlawed.
Okay, Krista, do you feel like you have that? Okay. Because the creation and or maintenance of loud, unusual, or other unnecessary noises, or which will annoy or disturb,
Or noises which will annoy or disturb.
or noises which will annoy or disturb.
Okay. And then in 97-6A, on page 12, it says, in accordance with the concept set forth below, it shall be unlawful for any person to make, continue, or cause to be made, or continue any. I would change excessive, unnecessary, loud noise to what is defined, loud, comma, unusual, or other unnecessary noise.
Which will disturb. So are you inserting the same language in 97-1 and in 97-6?
No, because 97-6 already has that second piece of it. So
Which
in
either annoys, okay.
So in 97-6, I'm only changing excessive, unnecessary, loud noise to the defined term, which is loud, comma, unusual, or other unnecessary noise.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Yeah, okay, John Colbeth?
Madam Moderator, I'm just questioning point of order, where this was all just voted to take it off the warrant. And it was a noise ordinance recommended by the Short-Term Rental Committee, chaired by Chief Solomon, and became before the selectmen who adopted it. Is this the place to make the changes to it or not?
Let's ask Peter Malia. Our town council just happens to be here, so before I jump in and tell you what I think, we'll ask Peter what he thinks.
I'd allow it. I think Chris is right that it's more of a housekeeping amendment to just use the exact words that are in the definition in the two other parts of the noise ordinance that he identified. So I'd allow it because I think it cleans up the document a little bit.
And because we have the chair of the short-term rental committee here, maybe Chief Solomon, you could let us know whether you'd have any problem with that amendment?
No, in general, the ordinance was taken from another town anyway, and there's certainly, that sounds like a great housekeeping thing to do, is clean up all that verbiage and make it all match.
Okay. Krista, can you read? Okay. That's correct. So we're lining up 97-1 and 97-6, so it's the same language. Any further discussion on that amendment? Mr. Marvel?
I don't want to appear to be in defense of the noise ordinance necessarily, although I don't like noise much myself. But I'm
Get right into the microphone. You've got to be very
I'm
close.
concerned about my understanding of things is enhanced by seeing them in writing. If this had been presented ahead of time and I could read it and compare it, I'd feel kind of comfortable with it. I'm concerned about the impromptu nature of it. It may well be innocuous. I don't know. I can't really tell you what it says right now. I can't write fast enough to keep up with what's going on.
So if I could clarify, I believe that when we get the town report, the warrant is going to be in the town report, correct? Would it be possible to have this in red line in the warrant? Tom Holmes is nodding his head. So when I say red line, I think some people call it track changes. So the warrant would show the language that was struck out and the language that was inserted in. So when you get the town report, before you vote, you will have the opportunity to exactly compare that change. Any further discussion on this amendment to Article 23? All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed? So that amendment passes. Did we pass the amendment on taking the language out? The noise ordinance language itself out, okay. So Article 23, as amended, moves to the April ballot. Now we go down to Article 24 on page 13. Non-monetary, to see if the town will vote to accept Southview Loop as a town road, submitted by petition. It says recommended by the Board of Selectmen, but you'll notice the vote is 0-5-0, and recommended by the Board of Budget Committee, the vote was 2-10-0. So in fact, it's not recommended by either of those boards.
So, Madam Moderator, I've been asked to propose an amendment to the wording so that it does say not recommended by the Board of Selectmen. So not would be placed at the beginning of the sentence there to make it more clear.
And seconded by David Weathers. Does anybody have a comment one way or the other? Jim?
Budget Committee also wants to go with not recommended on this article for clarification purposes.
Okay, so John, can you just amend your motion so that you're putting not, in Article 24, you're putting in the word not twice. It's not recommended by either board. Correct? Yeah, and, okay. All right, is the petitioner here? Is there someone that wanted to speak to this, this warrant article about South Loop Road? No, okay. Oh, Paul D., our town engineer now, and assistant town manager.
Chief cook and bottle washer. The reason that we urged both the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee not to support the article is that petitions for town road acceptance are due on the 1st of October, and we received this petition several months after that. The reason they're due then is so that we can ascertain whether the road was built to town road standards and to their planning board approval of the time. And in order to do that, we might have to excavate, we might have to do some test borings, laboratory work, sieve analysis, etc. We're not able to do that. This road was built in two parts. The first part is quite old, long before we had a resident inspector program. The second part was built with the town and residents, but the record indicates that potentially the top coat of pavement had never been put on. In either case, we could have ascertained all those, whether or not it meets current standards or the standards under its approval at the time, but because of the late date of the petition, we're unable to do that. It's in our ordinance that petitions are supposed to be received in Chapter 130, Article 10, road acceptance by October 1st. Having said all that, we can tell you, looking at the first half of that road, that it's likely that it does not meet town standards. Any questions?
Julie, are you asking a question? No? Okay. Okay, so the amendment is to add, this is a housekeeping amendment to add not to the recommendations. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. All those opposed? The amendment passes. We'll place the article as amended on the April warrant. At this point, I usually entertain a motion to waive the reading of the nonprofit articles and to discuss them as one article. And so move. Is there a second? All over. These are page 14. There's a whole list of nonprofits looking for some money from the town, as well as the one on page 13. Are any of those ones that anyone here would like to discuss? Seeing none, I will move Article 25 through Article 34 to the April ballot as written. And then Article 35, to act upon any other business that may legally come before the meeting. Does anyone have any other business they'd like to raise?
I just have one quasi-official thing. Most of you know this is Moderator Deborah Farther's last meeting that she's going to be at the elections, but this is her last meeting. Please join her for a job well done. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else going on here in this gym tonight, then I will entertain a motion to recess until April 13th. Okay. Good night. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm not sure if it is. I think there was one short.
Yes. There was an and and an or that weren't quite right.
I would like to amend the